All right, lesson 8.2, what we are going to do is we're going to learn more about exponents. So 8.1, we learned what happened when we had the same bases, okay? And they were being multiplied, so we added the exponents together. Then we learned how to do distributive property with the exponents. So we're going to learn a few more properties with exponents. The first property that we are going to learn is what to do when I have an exponent of 0. Now, I had some people ask me on Friday, they said, okay, what do you do when you have an exponent of 0? That's what we're going to accomplish today. Now, if I ever see a base that does not have an exponent, what do I know is the understood exponent? 1. It is never 0. Anytime you have a base, okay, and you don't see the exponent, it's automatically 1. A 0 exponent will always, always, always be written, okay? So let's go ahead and solve these. Here's the big mystery to the 0 exponent. Anything that has an exponent of 0, the answer is always 1. Always. It's never anything different. Anything with a 0 exponent is 1. Okay? So, Madison, what would the answer be to this next problem? 1. Kyle, what would the answer be to the third problem? 1. Okay, now let me stop right here on this one. The 5 is in parentheses, which means my answer is going to be a positive 1. However, if this was your problem, negative 5 to the 0 power, your answer would be negative 1. Anytime that base is not in parentheses and it has an exponent of 0 and it's a negative number, your answer will be negative. But because this one was in parentheses, we knew it was positive, okay? Now, what would this next problem be? What would the answer be, Zach?
0.
1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? What if I gave you this, David? What would your answer be? That's x to the 0 power. 1. It doesn't matter if it's a letter. It doesn't matter if it's a number. Anything to the 0 power is 1. What if I were to give you this one? What would your answer be? 1. Because I would distribute this, a to the 0 times b to the 0, which equals 1. Okay? What if I were to give you this one? Okay, what does this 0 need to be distributed to? Just to the b, because the b is the only thing in parentheses. Now, if the 2 is in parentheses, then yes. So it's just to the b. So 2 times b to the 0 power. So now I have 2 times 1, which is 2. Does everybody see that? The only thing that gets made a 1 is the thing that has the 0 power. If your other term does not, then it stays just the same. Okay? So, anytime you have a 0 power, what's your answer? 1. Okay, so now we're going to deal with negative exponents. And how do I take care of a negative exponent? Because you can never, ever, ever have a negative exponent. Does everybody hear that? You can never, ever, ever have a negative exponent. If your final answer ever has a negative exponent, it is incorrect. So this is how you take care of it. Anytime you have a negative exponent, in order to make it positive, all I have to do is take the reciprocal of the base. Does everybody remember when we talked about reciprocals back at the very beginning of the year? A reciprocal just means you take a fraction and you flip it. You say, okay, well, what if it's not a fraction? Let's make it a fraction. What is 2 as a fraction? 2 over 1. Okay? In order to make this exponent positive, I need to do the reciprocal, which means flip it. So I'm going to have 1 over 2 squared. That makes that exponent of negative 2 a positive 2. Then I can just simplify from there. 1 over what? 4. And that is my final answer. Okay? So anytime you have a negative exponent, you always, always, always have to do the reciprocal. All right, Derek. What is the reciprocal of 1 over negative 3? Exactly, negative 3 over 1. When I flip it, what happens is my exponent becomes a positive number. Now look right here. That exponent is going to stay with the base that it started out with. It's not going to automatically go to the 1. Okay, no, it stays with the base that it started out with. If it started out right beside negative 3, it stays beside negative 3. Now, what is negative 3 to the 4th power? Positive 81. Positive 81. The reason why, anytime you have an exponent that's an even number with a negative base, your answer will always, always, always be positive. Always. Okay? 81 over 1 is 81. Okay? Now let's do one like this. What if I had 2 over 4 to the negative 2 power? What would I do? This one's tricky. Because I don't have a 1 in my numerator. So I can't technically flip the entire fraction. Anytime you have something that's already in a fraction, in order to make this a positive exponent, all I need to do is move it to the top. Okay, does that make sense? Anything that's in the bottom, in order to make it a positive, I just move it to the top. So now I have 2 times 4 to the 2nd power. And now there's nothing left on the bottom except for a 1, technically, and I don't even have to write it. So what would this answer be? 2 times 16, which is 32. Okay, same thing goes if you had a problem like this. I'm going to erase all this. If I had 3 to the negative 2 power over 2. Okay, what is the only term with a negative exponent? This 3 right here. So in order to make it a positive, if it's on the top, all I need to do is move it down to the bottom. But what happens when I move it? What's left up top? Just a 1. Just a 1. I don't want to flip the whole fraction because 2 doesn't have a negative exponent. And it's not a 1 that can just be moved to the top. Okay, so now I have 2 times 3 squared, which is 1 over 2 times 9, which is 1 over 18. So whenever you move everything that is on the top, you're always left with just a 1. Okay, anybody have any questions over that? All right, I'm going to give you one more because there are some like these on your homework. So if you had something like, what is it? Everybody look up here because this is on your homework, so you will have a question over this if you don't understand it right now. Okay? What is the only base that has a negative exponent? The only one. Josh? Does 3 have a negative exponent? No. Only x. 3 does not have a negative exponent. So how would I make x a positive? Move it to the top. 2 stays exactly where it is. This x becomes a positive squared. And 3 stays exactly where it is. This is my final answer. There's nothing left for me to simplify. Okay, does everybody understand that? So, in order to make an exponent positive, if it's on the top, you move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, you move it to the top. All right? Here are 3 problems that we are combining what we did on Friday with what we did today. See if you can figure out how using what we learned on Friday is going to help you and making your work a little bit easier from something that we learned today. Okay? When I have the same bases and they are being multiplied, what can I do with their exponents? Add them. So my base is going to be 4. Remember, you never multiply them. And what is 3 plus negative 3? 0. What's 4 to the 0 power? 1. Always 1. Now you say, okay, Well, I didn't do that. I did it like this. You did 4 to the third power times 4 to the negative third. So you said, okay, I need to make that reciprocal. So I do 4 to the third times 1 over 4 to the third. Okay, that's still fine. 4 to the third is 64 times 1 over 64. 64 times 1 over 64 is 1. So do I get the same answer? Yep. You just do a lot more work. Does everybody see that? So that's why you can use what we learned on Friday to help you, and you have a lot less work than if you were just to do what we did today. All right. What would I do on this next problem with my exponents, Kyle? Exactly. Multiply them. What's negative 3 times negative 2? Positive 6. Well, did that take care of my negative exponents? Sure did. So what's 2 to the 6th power? 64. Now, you said, okay, well, I wanted to do it the way that we learned today. Not a problem at all. What you would have needed to do was do 1 over 2 to the third power. Then everything is still to the negative 2, which means I've got to reflip it. Then I would have done my work. Again, obviously using what we learned on Friday is much easier. Okay? What would I do in this problem? Katie, what would I do first in this third problem here? Is there something that you can do that might make it a little bit easier for you first? Exactly. Multiply negative 5 and 2. If you do that first, it's going to make it much easier for you. Again, something we learned on Friday. Negative 10 to the negative 2 power. David Burwell, what would I do there? You need to do the reciprocal, okay? Taylor, what is the reciprocal of negative 10?
10.
No, not just 10. Remember, if it's a fraction, I flip it. So what is negative 10 over 1 flipped?
1.
Very good. Remember, this is a negative. Just because I put it to the bottom does not take away the negative of the base. It only takes away the negative of the exponent. So now my answer is going to be 1 over what? What is negative 10 times negative 10? Positive 100. Do not make that a negative 100. Okay?